Welcome, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day and happy Ash Wednesday. And so, with those two holidays going on, probably won't have a lot of guests tonight, but I am flying solo because I wanted to come on here and talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart, especially in today's climate. And so, I want to start off with a story. And I went live the other day and talked about this on social media. And I was at the grocery store and I was reaching for the almond milk. And when right as soon as I was reaching for it, I heard someone say, "It's not my responsibility to, tell them what they need to do, or I shouldn't have to hold their hand." And I was like, "I'm just trying to get some almond milk." And I looked around and I noticed they were just on their phone. They had a earpod wow, in their ear, and they were talking to someone on the phone. And so, of course, this person was a little louder and I could hear their conversation. And they continued to talk about, they're tired of having to hold people accountable. They're tired of people thinking that this is what working hard looks like, and they're tired of this. And, I kept asking just in my head, because I've heard this conversation a lot, not just in the grocery store, but with principals that I have the opportunity to work alongside, or instructional coaches that I get to work alongside. And there are a lot of frustrations when it comes to workplace habits and workplace etiquette, I guess you could say, especially if they are of different generations. And even as a teacher, when we go into the classroom, we can definitely tell that the students that are sitting in our classroom today in 2024 are very different than the students that were sitting in our classroom in 2019, not that long ago. And so there are always all of these different generational gaps, which is a beautiful thing because then it's a very diverse skill set that is coming to the organization. However, it also can cause a lot of frustration. And one thing that a great leader can do is bring everyone together to, one, better understand generational work habits, communication skills, values, collaborative processes, and then talk about the expectations. Because let's face it, if I am talking to someone, maybe a boomer, or someone, maybe my mom, and we're talking about what does it mean to be a hard worker, she might have a very different definition than what a Gen Zer might have. I mean, I know she does because we talk about this quite often. She's a manager in her office, and she has a varying degree of individuals that she works alongside, and it is filled with different generations. And there are some frustrations that occur with every leader that I talk about within their organization because of generational gaps. So I wanted to take a moment today and just let's talk about it. Let's open the floor and let's talk about these differences. One, I want us to embrace them. First and foremost, it is amazing that we have a diverse group of ages and generations within an organization that can help one another. And when I look at my own generation, I'm a millennial. I was born in 84. If I'm looking at my own generation, man, the transformation that I have seen. I mean, I'm from an age where there was no internet, there were no cell phones. I mean, there were cell phones, but you had to be a bajillionaire to have a cell phone. And it was, I mean, I remember getting our very first home computer. I was in high school, and then it was dial up. So I'm used to VCRs and cassette tapes. And then we go to CDs, and that was crazy. And then MP3 players, and now just streaming on a device where I can just say, "Hey," I'm not going to say her name because it's just going to turn on, but you know the name I'm talking about. "Play this," and it does. So we have seen so many changes, but then we also have generations in the workforce that have not gone through all of those changes. And that's why I titled this episode Analog to AI, because we are working with individuals who have experience with the entire gamut. So let's go ahead and dive into this. And the first thing that I said to do, embrace. the generational diversity within your organization. But the second thing, inform everyone in your organization about the various working geniuses or working skills or working characteristics of the different generations. Now, is this 100% accurate? No, everyone is different. Again, another beautiful thing. However, this can give us a little more insight as to why people work the way they work. So let's go ahead and look at this real quick. The first thing I want to discuss are communication styles. So if we're looking at our baby boomers, man, they prefer that face-to-face communication, but I'm going to tell you right now, those Gen Zers don't want the phone call. They're not going to answer the phone call. They want you to text them or DM them. I'm going to say millennials, I'm kind of in between, but baby boomers really value that face-to-face or that phone call. And so when we are looking within an organization and we're talking about communication, we need to vary it up. There needs to be different styles of communication for different purposes. They also value formal communication and prefer very structured meetings. Whereas our Gen Xers, they're comfortable with both. So are our millennials. However, our Gen Zers, they really want to focus on, like, they want the text messaging or the DM. And you know what? They they are very skilled at multitasking. But I'm going to tell you right now, sometimes that multitasking appears as though it is disrespectful to a baby boomer or a Gen Xer. And so let me tell you what I mean by this. I have sat in meetings before where I have seen a baby boomer or a Gen Xer presenting, and maybe a younger person is working and listening and doing this and doing, like, you see those multi performances, and it infuriates the older generation, which I'm not going to lie, even as a millennial, it irks me sometimes. But there has to be an understanding also of the way that they were brought up. They were brought up even in the classroom. I taught the Gen Zers. Even in the classroom, they had the autonomy for multitasking. They were taught to multitask. They were multitasking at home. They had 20 million extracurricular activities. They were being called by their parents, but then they were also being hounded by their teachers. Like, they were brought up and it was ingrained in them to be a multitasker. Now, that's not to say one way is better than the other. However, in an organization, it is the role of the leader to establish clear expectations. And I have heard this over and over again. I should not have to tell an adult to do this. I should not have to tell an adult that this is how they need to behave in a meeting. But guess what, my friend? You do. And the reason being is because different generations have been taught different norms. They have been taught different ways to function. And I'm going to tell you, as someone who has taught Gen Zers, like, that was my jam. I, went into the classroom. My Gen Zers were in my classroom. Heck, now I even have the next generation, they were in my classroom. They were taught to multitask, and they had to multitask on a daily basis. So there needs to be some grace. There needs to be some understanding. However, expectations have to be established. And once those are established, hey, then we're going to roll with it. So let's look at the next one. Workplace habits. This one's huge, and this gets people into a tizzy. And actually, I've seen some arguments come out on this one. So the first one, we're going to look at baby boomers again. They have that traditional work ethic, prefer traditional work. They prioritize loyalty. The same thing with Gen Xers. We see a lot of loyalty to organizations, to their companies. They start with them, and 30 years later, they're retiring with them. Like, there is value in that organization. But then with our millennials and our Gen Zers, we do see some flexibility within that loyalty. Maybe there's loyalty because, oh my gosh, we absolutely love working here and I don't want to do anything else. There's that. But then there's also, hey, if I'm unhappy, I'm going to leave because I can go get a job somewhere else. And I know that I have heard many, many varying opinions about this. I've heard, well, you look like you're a job hopper. It doesn't look good that you've jumped from place to place. And I'm going to tell you, on some degree, that is true. However, when we look at our millennials and our Gen Zers, they value autonomy and they value happiness in the workplace. How many of you sat and watched your parents or grandparents complain, and not complain, I don't want to say complain, that just sounds so, but vent, talk about their frustrations with the people that they work with or their workplace, and how unhappy they are and how unhappy they are with their boss, or how, I will never make enough money and I'll never have this. And so seeing that, you just kind of think to yourself, man, I don't want that for my parents. I don't want that for me. So there is a shift in thinking where now there is a prioritization around happiness, which is a great thing. So again, there needs to be that clear guideline, those clear expectations of what it is. Now, I've also had these conversations, and even though I'm a millennial, I fall in the baby boomer Gen X, grew up on a farm, like hard work, you work sun up to sundown, you get the job done and you don't half-ass it, you make sure it's the best work that you can do. Like that has been ingrained in me from day one. And there are times when I go to work where I've been on campuses or something and I see someone show up as soon as the bell rings and leaves as soon as the bell rings. I'm like, what? What? How can you do that? The job's not done. You can't leave. Or maybe they're like, absolutely not. I'm not coming in on the weekends, or absolutely not. I'm not doing this. And you're just like, what? We can do that? What? Why would you say that? And so there needs to be, again, that common understanding of what is it in this organization as a collective. Workplace habits need to look like this. And so finding that balance of autonomy and the grind, I guess I would say, for the various generations. And there needs, again, to be this understanding. So if you are someone who's a baby boomer, a Gen X, an early millennial, more than likely you were brought up with that same, from the beginning to the end of the day, work. You don't turn in anything that, it all needs to be high quality. You don't just leave it. You keep going until the job's done. Whereas later millennials and Gen Zers, again, were taught a different route. And it's not that, oh, social media has done this to them. No, what has happened is in their school setting, as a teacher, I have seen this. There's a lot of autonomy. There are a lot of opportunities for creativity and innovation. There are opportunities to fail, which is a great thing. These are good things because the earlier generations tended to put on them this sense of perfectionism, which was very unhealthy. And so finding that balance between the various generations is very important. But everyone needs to know this. Like, people need to see these work habits among each generation and come to the understanding that each generation was taught this. It was ingrained in them. So when you are angry at them, remember, these are the habits that have been developed their entire life. We can't stop a habit from just overnight. And so if you are frustrated, one, give them grace, but two, try to understand where they are coming from on both ends and come to a happy conclusion. Now, the next thing that I want to show are our values. And so this is also going to vary from generation to generation, maybe even culture to culture, maybe even state to state, city to city. It all varies. But when we're looking at generations, when we look at our baby boomers and our Gen Xers, it is a lot of independence, a lot of stability, security, traditional values such as hard work. We work hard and we get the job done and we do it on our own. We are an independent, fueled machine. Millennials to Gen Zers, you're going to see a lot of shift in we're not just independent, we love to collaborate. So there is a strong force in collaboration and bringing everyone together. Now, a couple of problems that I have seen this create. When we have Gen Xers and baby boomers and even early millennials working with later millennials and Gen Zers, there's a lot of frustration because I am this person. I get frustrated when I see people not being proactive on their own, when they continually come, what do I do next? What do I do next? What do I do next? Whereas the people in the earlier generation, they're going to say like they're going to, you figure it out. You go figure it out. I remember my grandmother when I would just say, how do I spell this? Look it up in the dictionary. Look it up in the dictionary. Look it up in the dictionary. Go do, like, she would never give me the answer. It was go look it up. And that again ingrained the independence. But then I want you to remember the education system shift. In our public education system, when a later, well, I would say a Gen Zer primarily, because that's when, you know, you have the internet, so many things were at their fingertips that they received instant answers. And teachers then became more giving, not giving, that's the wrong word. I think they were more apt to help, but sometimes that help wasn't the best because it was just giving it to them. It fostered this sense of, oh, they're going to save me. When, let's be honest, sometimes we need to struggle. Productive struggle is good. And there are some generations that have not had to experience that productive struggle. They are very dependent on the collaborative process or someone who is higher up. So again, know why these frustrations are happening. And this right here, I'm going to tell you, can create a very toxic workplace if there becomes a sense of resentment that you never try to solve anything on your own. You're always doing this, or you're always telling me what to do. It has to be your way or the highway. You have two opposites, but they all need to understand one another and why we're acting the way that we're acting. So let's look at our last one here. How should this impact our leadership? So when I am thinking of my group and I have a team that I lead and they're made up of various generations, and I hear often, this person doesn't work hard enough. This person's always telling me what to do. This person, it's their way or that. There's only one right way to do it. This person, is always wanting to try something new and it's stressing me out. You want to avoid, one, you want them to embrace it. Those differences are so valuable to one another because, oh my gosh, I look up so much to those who have been in the profession longer and they have that wisdom, and I'm always seeking their guidance. But then those in the younger generation, I'm like, oh my gosh, teach me these new ways so I can connect and relate to the outside world and my clients, which would be students and teachers and administrators. So one, we all need to embrace the differences. It's a beautiful thing. If we all acted the same way, it would be horrible. It'd be boring and nothing would be innovative and beautiful. So we need to embrace it. But then, like I mentioned before, you need to help everyone in your organization that you are leading understand the differences and why they're there. And there are a lot of assumptions based on why those differences occur. And I hear a lot of blaming. You hear it in every generation. Well, back in my day, y'all are just coddled. Everyone gets a trophy. Or you hear things like, they're just old and crotchety. You have so many different negative assumptions. And one of the biggest ones that I hear is social media. Well, because of this, they're acting like this. But I want you to take a step back. Leaders, You need to show them how each generation reacted to their experiences. They are a product of their surroundings. They are a product of their environment. They are a product of the way they were raised. And so everyone needs to have that understanding to wrap their head around why people behave the way that they do, the characteristics that they have. There's no better way. It's not like this way is better than that way. They're just different. So that's the first thing as a leader you need to do. Work on that mindset shift with those that you lead. But here's the next thing that I want you to do. I need you to establish clarity, because whether you like it or not, there are some things that are professional and not professional. Not too long ago, I was in a school district and a coordinator was providing a presentation to a campus. And so I was there already. I was working with some instructional coaches, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to sit here. I got some time to waste, and I'm going to listen to what the coordinator is presenting on. Well, it was a great presentation. It was interactive. Things were going great. But the presenter started going a little longer, and I'm not talking 20 minutes longer, but it was like 2 minutes after they were supposed to finish, and it was lunchtime. Well, one of the teachers stood up and was like, I got to respect my time. Bye. And they just left. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, how disrespectful. Like, here you have a district coordinator providing you with valuable information that you need to help you be successful. They've worked hard on doing this, and you just stood up and left because you had to go to lunch, which I'm going to be very clear. This wasn't a school day. This was a teacher work day when they would have had plenty of time for lunch. And it was very unprofessional. Now, I probably would receive some arguments that they have to protect their time. We can't just work forward. We got to get mental clarity. Blah, blah, blah. No, that was very unprofessional. That teacher, I know for a fact, would not have been okay if a student of theirs stood up in the middle of class and just left and said, I got to respect my time. So there needs to be a sense of clarity. There needs to be defined parameters. And we have to get rid of this mentality that I shouldn't have to tell an adult blank. Because the truth of the matter is, our generational gaps are so vast because we literally have gone from analog to AI. We literally have seen more transformation in the last, let's just even say 24 years than we have in the last 100. So clarity needs to be established when it comes to communication, workplace habits, and values. So let's look at this a little further. The first thing, I want you and your team to ask these 3 questions and have these conversations. What characteristics baffle you? Well, as someone who is an earlier millennial, one thing that baffles me is people just leaving as soon as the time clock is up. Like, that baffles me. Does that mean it's wrong? No. But that, because it was ingrained in me not to, like, you come early and you leave late, it baffles me. So those are some conversations that we need to have as a group, and then talk about, why does it baffle you, and like get to know this and just kind of lay it out on the table. What do you find yourself saying? I cannot believe they would do this. I cannot believe they would I cannot believe they would stand up to the boss and tell them that they're wrong. I cannot believe that they would tell me what I have to do. So, like, these are things that you want your teammates to have that conversation. And then finally, what gets on your nerves? Like, I hear it all the time. I hear an older generation talking about how it gets on their nerves that when they walk into an office, they see employees with their earbuds in. That they get annoyed when they are somewhere and they see people on their phone. Like, these are things that get on their nerves. So we need to just lay it all out. What are the frustrations that we have among the various generations? And this isn't a bashing session. This is, we need to get it out because now we are going to establish our organization's expectations. So let's talk about that a little more. Communication. How will we communicate? For this, we will have meetings, and this is what those meetings will look like. But guess what? We're also going to use DMs. We're also going to use instant messaging. We're also going to use texting. This is when. Now, when we're looking at inquiry, when we have questions, what is it? What are the protocols that we're going to follow? And maybe you have expectations of like the teacher, classroom teacher rule, ask 3 before you ask me. Maybe you're going to establish that. Or maybe you're going to have a checklist, like do this, before this, but you're going to try to solve that problem on your own before you go seeking help. The quality of work. What constitutes hard work? So are we talking about time? So maybe in our organization, I don't care if you work just bell to bell, as long as you're getting work done. Let's look at the success criteria, because let me tell you, people, I know people who show up to work an hour early and leave like 4 hours late, and they don't get a darn thing done because they talk the whole time and they're not very productive. They don't use their time wisely. So you need to have that conversation around time, effort, output. What constitutes quality work? So you don't have to lose sleep every single night because you're working. Like, I don't care about that effort. What I care about is the success of the output that I've asked you to create, the quality of the work. And so set those expectations. Then cohesion and unity. When we are collaborating as a team, how will we support one another? When should we experience, or when should we exhibit dependence, and when should we exhibit independence? And what does that look like? How should we collaborate via social media, and how should we collaborate via technology? Again, remember, you're working with people who have gone from analog to AI, and then you have people that have just gone from internet AI transformation. So there needs to be some expectation set. And then finally, values. How do we perceive respect? A millennial is going to perceive respect very different than a baby boomer. A Gen Zer, especially, is going to perceive respect in different ways. Even when we're in classrooms as educators, we talk about respect with our students, but every household has a very different picture of respect. So, leaders, no matter your organization, you need to have that conversation with your employees, with your collaborative groups, with your leadership teams on what does time look like? What does feedback look like? What does attention look like? And what is technology? And when I'm talking about attention, remember earlier I told you that story about being in a meeting, not the one where the teacher stood up. That was unprofessional. I'm talking about the meeting where someone is presenting, but then someone's taking, maybe working on something here, they're multitasking. If that is something that you do not want and you're adamant, like, this is how we show respect, and we show respect by this, and this, you got to lay it out. And I know you probably are thinking, I shouldn't have to. They're adults. Again, remember, yes, you do have to, because of the generational gaps. So you have to set those expectations. You have to get clear. So this is going to help foster a very collaborative community, and one that is in sync, that they are cohesive. So just a final reminder, I want you to embrace the diversity. This is a beautiful thing. This is a wonderful thing, but you need to support the mindset of those that you lead. Support the mindset and help them to embrace generational differences. And then foster trust through clarity. Everyone has clear expectations of how we need to function. These are our organization's agreements, essentially, based on our communication, our work habits, and our values. That way, hey, it doesn't matter if we have generational gaps. This is what our organization perceives as hard work, great communication, respect. And then lean on one another. Every person on your team has something to add. They have value to add to the team. Lean on them. Just because you are of a different generation, maybe you're older, you've been in the game for a longer time, that brand new employee has some value to give to you. Everyone has room to grow, and vice versa. New employee, don't feel like you're just going to come in and re-innovate everything, that everyone else is old and get rid of them. No, I'm telling you, you can learn from me. You can learn from a millennial. You can learn from a Gen Z or a Gen Z. You can learn from a baby boomer. Do not avoid various generations. Lean on one another. And so the final thing that I want to bring up to you tonight is I have an offer just for you. If you're like, okay, Alyssa, I see this. I know that I need to be doing this, but I don't even know where to start. Hop on a call with me. Go ahead, give me a call. It's free. Let's stop the chaos and unify your teams for success. 45-minute call. Let's make it happen. And I can help you establish a plan of action to make sure that your teams are moving in the same direction and working together the best way that they possibly can. So if you'll see, you can register at the bit.ly Stop Chaos 24, scan the QR code right there, or you know what, just visit my website, crabtreecoachingcollaborative.org, and you'll find it there as well. Thank you for joining me tonight. Again, I know it's Valentine's Day, it's Ash Wednesday. So thank you so much for being here with me tonight. And if you're watching this on a replay, go ahead, leave your comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know even just maybe what are some frustrations you're having with the generational differences within your organization, and let's talk it out. So until next time, big news. I want you to join me next week. Next week, I am hosting the president and CEO of Solution Tree. He is going to be on here, and we're going to be talking about the future of education. So I hope to see you here next week. It'll be next Tuesday, same place, 7 o'clock. And I will see you then, my friends. All right. Have a wonderful Valentine's Day. Bye, everyone.